Oh, that split behind me is doing great. Hi, friend. How are you doing? Going to answer your questions today. My job is to help beekeepers out, answer questions that's plaguing you. And so these are questions that are left over from my live stream last night. I live stream every Thursday night at 7 p.m. Last night we had over 800 beekeepers that were on the live stream. That's pretty typical. And we have a great time. 59 minutes of great fun. We have giveaways. I gave away one of my queens last night. And so we have a great time together. I teach and I answer your questions. And these are left over. And you can imagine in 59 minutes, I can't answer everybody's questions, although I try. I work hard for you guys. I'm working hard right now. Watch this video all the way through. Let's get into the questions. What's the best way to handle a laying worker? Should I add a queen or move those laying worker bees to a queen right hive? I'm pumped and excited about that question right there because a lot of people misunderstand laying workers. And let's get to the science, okay? Stop believing wrong information about laying workers. Laying workers is scientifically proven. They fly, they're foragers. Some people think you can dump them out and the laying workers can't fly back to the hive. That's not true at all. They fly back, they're foragers. It's been proven. So the way to do it, the way that I have done it successfully is to take a frame with a queen on it, an open brood from a strong colony. You have to sacrifice that frame, take it out of a strong colony, put the queen, like on this side of the frame, against the wall of the laying worker colony with all the bees on it and the open brood. Because you have a laying worker, because you've had no brood, no queen in there for over 21 days. And without that, your laying workers aren't suppressed from laying. A worker can lay, but they are not able to due to the pheromones that the queen gives off and the open brood gives off. And so when that's missing, they can lay a little bit, and they will, but they're not laying anything that's fertilized because a female worker is never going to be mated. They're not going to do that. So they're going to lay unfertilized eggs, which become drones, right? And so that's a problem. You don't want a hive full of drones because all drones do is mate with virgin queens and eat all your food up, so that's not going to be productive. So the way to write it is, like I said, put a frame of open brood with the queen on it. Now, what happens to the hive that you took the frame out of with the queen on it? Well, you can let them raise another queen because they have eggs. They're queen right. They're not suffering from laying workers, so they can easily raise another queen. Or you can buy a queen or raise your own queen and drop one in there. And that works out really well. And so also remember, laying worker means that somewhere along the line, the beekeeper wasn't watching, wasn't inspecting as often as they should. I recommend inspecting in the swarm season once a week. After swarm season's over, inspect every 2 weeks because that 14 days will alert you if your queen has failed and you have time before you run out of brood to suppress the workers from laying eggs. That answer your question? That's pretty helpful. All right, 3-year beekeeper here. I had one hive leave late this winter. Unsure why. All bees gone. Brood comb is black. Should I dispose of those frames? I've caught 2 swarms. Can I use those frames? Well, if your frames are black like this coffee mug that I got from Central Indiana Beekeepers Association when I spoke with them on December the 9th, 2024, last year, really enjoyed speaking with them. But if your comb is that black, I would replace it. Yeah, I don't like to keep my comb much more than 5 years. I like to scrape it off and start over. Found a huge swarm with 4 queens. Could this be 4 colonies? Absolutely. Pretty common in big bee yards. I'll try to throw a picture right here of yard where we gather up our packages. And I remember taking this picture. It was just a huge tree that was overcome. The entire tree was full of bees. And one swarm is not that big. And so a friend tried to get a bunch of bee boxes under it and to capture, a bunch of bees into boxes. But yeah, that's a whole bunch of swarms that merged together. It's really a sight to see. Had nosema early in the spring. Few bees survived, treated with fumigillin B, saw queen, larvae, cap brood last weekend. Any tips on helping the colony recover and build up? Sounds like you're doing the right things. you treated them. Nosema is basically a gut disease in the second gut of the bee. It's a microsporidian, and the microsporidian is like it shoots out a filament into the cell wall and into the cells of the lining of the second gut, and it just begins to take over, and the bees can't really, process their food anymore in their gut. And so it's a terrible thing to happen. That's why they have dysentery when you see that in the summer. Oftentimes they have dysentery. So it sounds like you're doing the right things. Keep an eye on it. Just, maybe feed them and see if they, usually, sometimes nosema will actually clear up in the spring because bees start eating, good food, good nutrition, running nectar and protein through their gut. Hi, David. Honing my thinking skills. 4 out of 5 colonies are calm and quiet for inspection. Hive number 5 and most honey productive. No, not quiet and calm. I guess that's what you mean. They fly and like to fly and bump. No stinging yet. Queen replacement candidate. So you're saying that you got a hive that's really good honey producer, but it's not as calm as your other 4. They're banging you on your, your veil. No stings yet. Yeah, you're going to probably find that they're going to get more and more defensive. And so I would say if it's more than you are comfortable with, replace that queen. Also, now when you replace the queen, listen up everybody, here's how you do it. If you get a hive that's really defensive and you don't like working them anymore, here's the way you can calm them down. Buy a new queen that, is from a good source, a calm bee hopefully, and you're going to go in and you're going to get rid of your old queen, and you're going to wait about 12 to 24 hours. You're going to introduce a new queen behind the candy, let the bees eat through the candy, and when she gets released, she'll start laying eggs. It's going to take about 45 days for the original mean queen's progeny to all die off naturally, and for your new queen to lay eggs and have a new workforce that's really calm. But it does work. Hey, John, David, and team, we caught our first swarm today, 100 feet from our 11 hives. Can we keep this new colony in the same yard, or should we move them off site? Will they go back to the original? No, they won't go back to the original. When a colony swarms and half of them leave, they will never go back to that original colony unless the queen didn't go with them. Then they may go back. So you're okay to put them in the same yard. No problem there at all. What's the best way to fix fat comb honey at the top of frames? Yeah, I got a few of those. When's the best time to trim it down? Thanks. I tried it and it made a huge mess. Do I just cowboy up and get her done? Yeah, here's the deal with that. Yeah, I've made some videos recently. I've got a comb I've been wrestling with this spring already, this fat at the top. If the comb next to it, the frame next to it is not pulled out yet, that's going to be a problem because the bees are going to make that comb indented more. So the way you can solve that is just brush the bees off, take it into your shop or somewhere indoors and get you a good bread knife and saw it off and just get it even with the wood on the frames, put it back in the hive. That's going to be your best bet to deal with it, I think. Yeah. When you get a new package, should you test for mites before treating or treat before they cap the brood? This is my first package ever this week. Okay, congratulations, Diana. Nice that you're beekeeping. All of the options that you mentioned are certainly yours to choose from. I don't have the corner market on all beekeeping knowledge. I don't believe you should do it my way or the highway. You're open to do it any way that you choose to do it. I'll give you some different opinions of what I feel that beekeepers do, and you can kind of maybe gain some information. But I would say I don't like to get a new package and install it and pour acid on them, like either Formic Pro or azelaic acid, because I want them to get used to the new home. New packages can abscond where all the bees leave. I don't want that to happen. So I'd like for them to settle down a little bit. On the other hand, some beekeepers say that bees that are new, like in a package, don't have any brood, capped over brood for the first 8 days probably. And so you have time to use something like azelaic acid to kill mites on bees because it doesn't kill below the caps. On the other hand, Formic Pro does kill mites below the cap cells of pupae. So you can wait 30 days, let your bees kind of get established and then treat them. So it's really your option to choose one way is probably not going to make a huge difference. There's just different risk factors depending on what you choose to do. Well, a new package of bees that the majority died, but a fistful size and queen lived, will they survive? Yeah, they'll get off to a slow start. Do you have another hive that you can bring over a frame of capped-over brood? That's going to help them a lot. Be aware that it's just going to take a little bit longer. You should feed them, but packages are tough, you know, especially if you have packages shipped to you. Sometimes they weaken during shipment, that's for sure. Joshua, when should I start thinking about treating for mites on a newly installed package? I just answered that question. Same answer, Joshua. Hi, David. Sorry I'm late. However, I still have the question. Can I put the package of bees inside, upside down, and the extra parts on top without shaking them? I see what you're saying. I made a video on this. I evaluated that on video where I took out 4 or 5 frames on one side of a deep and I put the package in there. I didn't do it upside down, but I took the candy can out of the top, put the queen over here, gonna have all the bees overnight go onto the frames, right? I know some people are opposed to shaking bees. They think it's tragic. They think it's horrible. They think bees are injured and hurt by being shaken. But remember, they're exoskeleton and they're pretty tough. They fly into each other when they're flying and they're fine. So we've been shaking bees forever. They do really good. I know it's disturbing if you're not used to seeing that. Navy Phil says, I'm from Central Alabama. Have you ever had success with different breeds of bees such as Italian, Carniolans, Russians? If so, what's your opinion of others? My opinion doesn't matter, Phil, but let's say I've tried them all. Carniolans, Cardovan, I've tried Russian, I've tried Buckfast, I've tried ankle biters, various strands of VSHBs. I've tested them all out, tried them in my bee yards, all, did I say Carniolan? All of them, you know, Buckfast. I don't really think in America it's hard for us to hold a real strict line of bees. It really is. I think there's people that work hard doing it. I know there's an organization that does Russian bees, and they swear by keeping their genetics really tight in their organization and such. People swear by that. And so I don't know. I know that there are people that are claiming that they have a very tight line of honeybees, but honeybees are also haploid diploidy, and so it's different than cows and dogs, right? Animals like that. The DNA and the genetics of honeybees. And so it is hard. And so also, Phil, you and I don't know each other. Let's say we went out to lunch and we had a great lunch. We talked about bees and had a hamburger, right? We wouldn't care where our ancestors were from. We would get along fine. And so a lot of people think that a Carniolan bees won't get along with Italian bees. Will Russian bees get along with, Buckfast bees? And look, they're Apis mellifera. We have to remember that. Their place of origin, their ancestry, doesn't matter to them. Now, do these characteristics, these traits, filter down and produce better genetics for us? Sure, but let's just think about this for a minute. Let's say I buy a Carniolan. It's supposed to get through the winter better, right? A darker bee. But let's say in the summer, my hive either swarms and so they raise a new one, or the queen dies and they raise a new one. Now, my daughter of the Carniolan bee, the queen, will fly out and mate with, who knows, 30 drones from everywhere. And so that's America. I think it's tough to really feel like we're going to keep this tight genetic line of bees, especially when bees swarm and queens die and you have to replace queens so often. That's a tough one, Phil, but I've tried that. And the results of what I've done with all of the bees that I've had, VSH, Carniolans, Russians, all of them, is that they're all about the same. I didn't notice any big difference. I know we want to think they are, but they're Apis mellifera. I think it's better that the beekeeper know how to keep bees and how to help bees than putting all of our stock in fingers crossed that this new queen is going to magically make everything better. That's my opinion. That's what you asked for. That's what you get. Well, what do I know? Herman, have double deep and notice in between boxes on backside a hole, bees are moving in and out. Never seen this. Do I just seal it up? I have fun watching their going in and out of their new entrance. Yeah, I tell you, Herman, I'd seal that up because in the fall you might get some robbers going in that back hole back there. It's happened to me. It's happened to beekeepers. We make those holes sometimes with our hive tools, opening and closing so much. We wear corners out. But yeah, fix that hole. Would it be possible to, and a good idea to do a split your first year in order to have 2 hives going into winter? I don't believe so, but again, I don't claim that you have to do it my way. If you want to try it, go for it. But my experience has been that it doesn't end well because you're maybe weakening a potential strong colony when you first start. You're weakening it by making 2 colonies and they may not build up in time for winter. And it sounds like you may be a new beekeeper too, and so you may not have all the experience and skills established yet to observe and properly get your hives ready for winter. So by splitting them and having to work harder to get smaller hives ready for winter, a skilled beekeeper could do it, but a brand new beekeeper, it's going to be potentially risky. I performed a split using a double screen board, double deep below with old queen, top deep is queenless. Yep, kind of like a Snell Grove or a double screen board. Cap brood and eggs in the top, letting them raise their own queen. What is the soonest I should check the top box for queen cells? Well, you can check in 3 or 4 days. They all have a queen cell up there. Be careful though, when you move those frames around, you could tear open a queen cell and do away with the queen. So you got to know bee biology. If you give them eggs at the top and they start raising the queen immediately, that means in about 8 days that queen cell is going to be sealed or capped over, and it's going to be a bona fide queen cell after 8 days. And so that's the timing. And then 8 more days, she will emerge as a new queen up there. Hey, Mark, good to see you. These are questions left over from my live stream. So join me every Thursday night at 7 p.m. Man, we have 800 beekeepers get together. It's a hoot. And we have giveaways. You don't want to miss that. When installing a nuke or a new package of bees, is it better to give them frames already drawn out or new frames with no build out of wax? Mark, it's always better to give them drawn comb. They can just get right in there and put in resources and the queen can lay eggs instantly. If they have to draw out the comb, it's going to take longer. I made a video recently where I wanted to show a brand new package. We sell packages and I always like to keep a few to see how they do. And I installed them as a video to say, hey, this is what new beekeepers go through. I'm going to install a package like all of you do and see how they do. Well, I installed them on drawn comb and somebody said it'd be better if you'd put them on undrawn comb like new beekeepers would experience. So I went back and changed it out. So in that video, I made it clear, don't do that. I'm only doing it for, educational purposes, but you should always use drawn comb if you got it. Absolutely. Yep. We just moved a colony from a tree that they wintered over in boxes. We found queen cups. Should we try to split soon? Oh yeah. If you got queen cups that are charged with larvae in it, boy, you gotta split right away. Okay, another Mark says, can you keep a hive in 2 deep boxes with a queen excluder, then adding honey supers on top without them running out of room in the brood boxes, then swarming? That's how we all do it, Mark. I do all my hives that way. 2 deeps, queen excluder, although I don't always use queen excluders. 2 deeps, queen excluder, honey super, boom. That's how it's done, absolutely. They won't swarm the first year, usually, but boy, that second year, in that configuration, doesn't matter. They have a reproductive instinct to swarm. So the configuration won't matter to you at all. Gary, I am feeding 1-to-1 honeybee healthy. I fed out 4 quarts and I decided to add your pollen substitute. It seems they have doubled their rate consumption. Is there a plausible reason for this? Well, the only thing you did differently, Gary, was that you added protein to the mix, and bees need protein. And so immediately when they saw protein, they went crazy over it. In nature, when they go to the flowers and they slurp up the nectar from the nectaries of flowers, they get pollen in tiny little pollen grains in the honey. When you eat honey, it has tiny pollen grains in it. That's why it's honey. If it didn't have the pollen grains in it, you couldn't call it honey actually. So we enjoy that bit of uniqueness of honey having pollen grains in it. And so when you feed bees sugar water 1-to-1, you're tricking bees in a bad way. They think they're eating nectar, consuming nectar with pollen in it or protein in it, but you didn't add any. So that's why I add it, to give bees what they want, and you can tell they know it and they start eating it more. That's good to hear. New beekeeper in Florida got a nuke on 3/8 and they swarmed on 3/28. Wow, 20 days later. Found a new queen and marked her. Looking good so far. Should I add a second deep or just add a super? It says 7 drawn frames now. Okay, so in Florida, you can get by with a single deep, add your supers on that under a queen excluder. Or, you know, yeah, I think in your case, my rule of thumb is 5 to 7 frames. 5 to 7 frames is when those 5 or 7 frames are drawn out with bees on it. You should add another box. Absolutely. I think that's great. Well, if you missed my live stream, I talked about May beekeeping tips. It's May. You need to watch this so you make sure you do it right in the month of May. Here's that video. I'll see you guys over there.